Today I'll be working on a 2013 Mazda 3.
The truth.
Today I'm going to be changing out the front and rear brakes along with brake lines. This is the part number for the front brake pads. It's a little hard to read, but this is the part number for the front brake rotors that I'm going to be using. It's a GD1312. The part number for the brake lines is that number right there. This is the part number for the rear brake rotors I'll be using. This is the part number for the rear brake pads. Be sure to crack the lug nuts loose before you try and jack up the car. Just makes it a lot easier, especially on your front wheels. Let's go ahead and jack up the car. I'm going to jack up all four wheels just so I can do the whole job in one big shot. Once you've got the car safely on jack stands, you can go ahead and remove your wheels. Ensure that your parking brake is off. When starting on the rear brakes, you're going to first want to go ahead and pop off these little caps on the end to access the bolt on the back side. See if I can show you really quick. That bolt right there. There's one of these little caps on the top and bottom. You have to take them both off. And that's going to hold on the piston from the bracket here. You want to make sure that you go ahead and remove the cap for your brake fluid reservoir. I'm going to start with replacing the brake line on the rear. When it comes to taking off the brake lines, you're going to go ahead and use a 10mm wrench to loosen this little bolt up right here. If you need to, you can hold it steady on this side. I believe it's a 15mm on this side. If you do need to end up holding it steady, it's going to be a 17mm on this end. I like to use a pair of pliers to go ahead and pull this little clasp out of the way. You're also going to want to remove this little rubber boot from the bracket that's holding it on there. Next, on the other end of the brake line, it's going to be a 14mm wrench. There's no real easy way to get to it. I tried it with a crow's foot. I couldn't just quite get it on there. So I just use a wrench at kind of a weird angle and just kind of turn it and to get that hose off. Next, I'm going to go ahead and thread this end onto our steel brake line. Once that's threaded on there, go ahead and secure it with one of the new clips. I tried the old clip and it just doesn't quite sit right, so I'm going to go ahead and use the new clips that came with the brake line kit. Next, you'll take your new brake line, go ahead and thread it into the brake caliper right there. When tightening that nut up, if you bought the same brand as me, it's an 11mm. Also, don't forget to secure the brake line back inside this little bracket right here. Make sure you're periodically checking your brake fluid level as well. Be sure not to fill it up too high. When you compress the pistons, it will push the brake fluid back out and then down inside your engine bay. But you also don't want it sucking air all the way through either. Next, we're going to go ahead and take out these two bolts, the top and the bottom ones. They are a 7mm Allen key, and it just fits right in the back. And you'll take it off like that. Once these are loose, I find it easiest if you just go ahead and pull them out. That way it just gets them out of the way. And then next we're going to be taking off this little wire bracket right here. Basically all I'm going to do is take a screwdriver, find a small enough screwdriver, just kind of get it behind the wire bracket, just kind of push it out. I'll pop it all the way out. This side should come right out easily. There it goes. And just kind of set that aside for now. Now your whole piston should be able to slip right off. Once you got your piston set aside, you can go ahead and take out your brake pads. Notice that the one on the back has a little spring. Your replacement should also have a same spring. To get to the rotor, you're going to need to take off this bolt right here and this one right down here as well. I believe they're both 14mm. Yep, they're 14mm. Once those bolts are out, that bracket should come right off. The rotor should come off, but if it doesn't, and it's stuck like mine, good smack with a rubber mallet should free it right up. Now it's loose enough, go ahead and remove it. Now we're going to be putting on the new rotor. And on these ones, they do have a right and a left side, so you're going to want to make sure you get it on the correct side. You can also use a lug bolt, or lug nut, excuse me, to just hold the rotor in place while you're working on things. Next, we're going to be reinstalling the bracket on the back side. So go ahead and get it into place and start putting your bolts back in. The little C shape on the bracket should fit right around the rotor. Once you get the bracket tight, you can go ahead and put your new brake pads in. Remember, your inside one is going to have the little spring, your outside one won't. Next, we're going to compress the piston. So you can see it's got these two little pins. So it's going to have to rotate as it gets compressed in. Got a special tool for that right here. When using this tool, you're going to kind of turn the shaft right here. It's going to twist and press in on the piston itself. Once you decompress the piston, you're going to go ahead and slide the whole caliper back on. And then we'll be putting in the bolts that run through here into the bracket. Once these two bolts are tight, you're going to go ahead and put your little wire bracket back on. I usually start with the top. Just going to stick the wire in the hole. Make sure it's lipped around behind. And then you're going to come down here. And okay, I can't do it one-handed, but you're going to loop it behind and then bring the pin in and get it into the hole. After you secure the bracket on there, you're going to go ahead and put your little plugs back on the back side of these bolts. There it goes. There's one for the bottom as well. And then we'll be bleeding the brake lines shortly. I will leave the link for this tool down in the description as well. When it comes to the fronts, the first thing you're going to want to do is take these little caps off. There's one at the top and on the bottom. You're going to want to go ahead and remove both of those. Next, you want to go ahead and pop off this little retaining clip. That just pops right out of there. Now, right where you took these caps off, there's going to be a couple of bolts that run through. It's a 7mm Allen key. You'll just crack them loose with that and take them out. Once you've unscrewed them, I prefer just to take them all the way out just to keep them out of the way and make sure you don't lose them. Next, your whole caliper is going to come off. There it goes. And the inner brake pad will stay in there as well. Now, when it comes to decompressing the piston, I prefer to leave the brake pad on and use a tool like this to go ahead and push the piston back in. It's kind of hard to do it one-handed. But this way it gives a surface for the tool to push on instead of trying to push inside the cylinder itself. Now you can go ahead and just remove the old brake pads. And this one just kind of pulls out. And, ow, watch your fingers. But it's got these little clips that link into the cylinder right here. Next, you're going to remove these two bolts right here holding the bracket on. There's a top one, there's a bottom one. They're both 17mm. Once those two come out, your whole bracket will come right off. Now, if your rotor is stuck on there, you can smack it with a rubber mallet a few times, but mine is already pretty loose. There it goes, right off. I'm going to go ahead and swap in for the aftermarket rotors. Kind of do this one-handed. There we go. Next, we're putting that bracket back on right over here. Once you get the bracket in place, be sure to tighten up the two 17 bolts on the back side of it. Now you're going to want to take your brake pad with the little prongs on the back. Go ahead and insert it into the piston. And don't forget to put the one on the front side of your brake as well. Just kind of sits into place. And that one, of course, is on the back side. Now you can go ahead and move your caliper all the way down, put it right over top. Once you get the caliper back in place, you can go ahead and put these little Allen keyed bolts back in the back side. Once the top and bottom are tight, don't forget to go ahead and put in the little plugs on the back side and just kind of push into place. Next, we're going to go ahead and put the little wire back into place. Just kind of pop it in. And then it's kind of hard to do it one-handed, but try and get this one in there and then this bottom part around the bracket part right here. Once you get that secured on there, we're going to go ahead and we're going to move on to doing the brake line next. So first thing you're going to want to do is take off, where is it? This little 10mm bolt right here. It's going to unscrew, drop down, and then you're going to also want to take this clip out as well. But go ahead and loosen that up first because this clip holds this line steady. So go ahead and remove the clip that holds this line onto this strut tower as well. Next, you're going to go ahead and take off this end of the line right down here. It's a 13mm. Next, you're going to want to take your new brake line, screw it into place right down here. Once you got that end tight, you can go ahead and thread this end into your brake caliper. Don't forget to secure down your brake lines in these little brackets right here and right here with your little clips. Now we're going to go ahead and start bleeding the brake lines from these little ports right here. If I can get the little rubber boot off. These little ports right here. Once again, just keep an eye on your brake fluid level to make sure it doesn't get too low and you're sucking air. You're going to want to start with the brake caliper furthest away from the master cylinder and then move yourself closer to it. You're going to have your assistant press the brake pedal several times. You're going to pump air and fluid out of here until it's only fluid coming out. When you stop seeing bubbles come through your line, you're going to want to have your partner press and hold the pedal down, and then you're going to tighten the nut up at the same time. Don't forget to top off your brake fluid reservoir. Be sure to put your little rubber caps back on the bleed ports. Once you get all the brakes bled, you go ahead and put your wheels back on and tighten up your lug nuts. Once you get all 4 wheels back on and all the lug nuts tight, go ahead and safely lower it back down to the ground. If you have any questions or comments about doing the brakes, please leave them in the comment section down below, and I hope this video helped.